focus, as I said, is on the student first, the individual student. And the CB is all about a framework in terms of the teaching and assessment. And also, it is based on predetermined competencies. I'm going to give you some examples very quickly. I just wanted to get this very basic framework of theory, and that it is an outcome-based approach. Let's say all of field trips, okay? Is the field trip, our question is, how is it enriching a curriculum? Let's say you're teaching pigments, and you're taking your students to a Sudarshan or a chemical factory. How are you going to assess, or how are you going to decide the predetermined competencies? Will you have a worksheet in which they have set of 5 questions, 10 questions, which they either have to interview the people at the fieldwork agency, or they have to make an observation, or they even have to do an extrapolation. So you give 3 levels of a very simple transactional, Q&A kind of competency. Second is that, make an observation and create a conclusion competency. The third one is that, okay, I saw this, where is this coming in my curriculum? And so you're kind of making a real world connection with the formula that you've learned, or the pigment formation that you've learned. And the fourth one is the whole extrapolation of, this is what I learned and this is what I saw, is there a correlation? So you kind of clearly give them a roadmap. Let's say another field visit example I'm taking, that we take our students to Dharavi, okay? So the topic is about urbanization and urban slum phenomenon, the whole globalization context and the economy and the interdependence. So you actually have clearly formulated the curriculum connect for a project like this, okay? And it is interestingly always an interdisciplinary connect. And then the students visit the project in Dharavi, which is all about recycle and the whole economy and how urban slums are formed. And the third one, very important, is that maybe make the students write down what were their preconceived notions. You remember I mentioned about the behavior and the whole moral value, ethics. What were their preconceived notions about a slum like Dharavi? And of course, they might have a lot of images that are very strongly driven by a slumdog millionaire or a gully boy. We have those very filmy depiction of a slum, and ask them to, when they come back, to talk about what were the myths or the prejudices or the biases that got busted. So what you're doing is that you're not only giving them a tool for reflection, but also you're giving them a tool for exploration, and to actually critically examine what knowledge level that they've been given to how are they forming their new knowledge. Now, how would you assess this whole experiential learning curve of visit to Dharavi? You give them options. They could either do a mind mapping of the interdisciplinarity of the subjects in Dharavi visit and the economy, or that they can actually do a conversation between 2 people, and they can highlight that either in the form of a video or in the form of maybe a small write-up, or it could be a blog, or it could be a picture collage, or it could be a research-based presentation of, okay, I've been to Dharavi, but I know very little about it in terms of its contribution to the economy and what it does to the recycle, and what happens when Dharavi comes to a standstill. So you're talking about a huge research base, so student can actually make that choice. Am I making sense to all of you guys, girls, boys?
Yes, there's one question, but I think as you were speaking, it would have been answered. But nonetheless, I will ask that question. It's by Zenobia. CBE involves, does CBE involves combination of subject around a concept or an idea? I think you answered that.
Yes, it does. It does. That's what I took that example. Another example that I could give is that, let's say we have, Pune is very, very well known for Varkari Sampradaya. It's the whole Sant traditions, and every Ashadi Ekadashi, just before that, there is a huge procession of varis that go to Pandharpur. So starting with, CB also helps you to identify a curriculum that is contextualized. Okay, so let's say you learn some tradition, and then many times we just sit in the classroom and learn about it, and then we just get an exam or an assessment paper and it's done. But a CB would say, how do I make it a learner-centric project? So how many different resources you bring in, first of all, to make this whole Sun tradition, uh, very alive and very joyful and very, very enriched. So you're talking about Sant Jnaneshwar, you're talking about a historical perspective, you're talking about a geographical perspective, you're talking about researching on why so many Varkaris and who are the Varkaris, you're talking about a whole sociological perspective of the class and caste and gender, you're talking about an environment perspective of why do the women carry those tulsi plants, and why is Vithala so black in color, and also why is that Abang sung by the women sons are not so well articulated. So you have a whole lot of perspective. So you can either choose to give it in the classroom, or you bring someone who's worked with those kind of questions, like a very amazing facilitator we have. And then you take them to the field when actually the Varkari, procession is happening, and give them a small set of observable pointers. This is very important because this is where you're demonstrating a predetermined competencies. And CBE says that all learning is not necessarily only instruction based on lecture mode. I think this gives us an amazing opportunity for them to observe and make notes and come back, and how do they present it. It could be in the form of a presentation, it could be in the form of a drama, it could be in the form of a research. So very, very important is that you look at the values and attitudes that's required for real life situation. And of course, it's an age and grade appropriate